Welcome to day 3 of the 12 Days of Christmas, a video series we created to help you get to the bottom of what is really holding you back from the life that you want. I'm Adelia Aborashade, a financial confidence coach, a relocation specialist, and solo travel enthusiast. And I'm one of the co-founders of Reclaim the Retreat.
And I'm Ivana Robinson, the other co-founder of Reclaim the Retreat. I'm also a certified life and leadership coach, and I help people identify what it is they really want and how to give fewer fucks about other people and how they feel about it. So, this is 12 Days of Christmas. The theme is 1 year from now. As in, 1 year from now, if your life was more fulfilling, what would be different? And in our last video, we talked about the feelings that maybe come up with thinking about what it is that you want and being able to go after it. This time we're talking about values, because who you are and the way in which you live your life doesn't just happen. It is not just a coincidence. There are a variety of factors that influence how you show up for yourself and in the world, but most prominent are beliefs and values. Whether or not they are yours,
that's a whole nother conversation. So you might be thinking, values, why does that matter? It's hard to be happy if you don't have a good idea of what is important to you.
Yeah, what makes you happy? How are we defining happiness? And let me explain. What is a value?
Yes, let's start there.
Which, at baseline, values are beliefs or principles that I guess are important in the way that you live and how you show up for others. They will generally show up in your behaviors and your actions. What are you centering throughout your life?
That is what values are. And I think part of the issue is the vast majority of us never consciously think about, these are the things I value, these are the beliefs I center, and that this is what's going to guide how I move through the world, although that's what it's actually doing.
Yes. And like Adelia said, we are not consciously choosing that quite often because we haven't sat down and thought about what are my values, what are the things that I value most or center. And we learn values, right, through the world, through our families, through just the ways in which we are socialized. And while there's nothing wrong with that, it does take some work to identify, are these actually mine? Are these things I want to center? Do they make sense for who I am as a person, or even in the way that they are showing up? Because we also want to make sure that our beliefs, our behaviors, and our actions are aligned. Because that is what is going to make it feel feasible.
Yeah, I think if you would think about, let's say 10-year-old you, and if somebody asked you, what are the things that really matter, a lot of what you would pull from or the answers you give, if somebody asked 30-year-old you the same question, would be very different.
Mm-hmm.
And I think until you consciously sit down and poke at this, examine this, you're likely to have your values be ones that were given to you by your parents, by your family, by society as a whole.
Absolutely. I think in general, we don't necessarily consider children to be people. They are treated as an extension, right, of their parents, of their family. And so it's not really about what those children desire quite often. It is about what the parents desire, what the parents feel is important. And while, that's not inherently wrong, it does create adults who therefore don't know how to make those choices and decisions for themselves or from a more intentional.
It's easy just to accept the values you are raised with, the ones that the adults in your life have said either consciously or subconsciously, this is what is important for us. I know for me, it was the idea to saying achieve the American dream kind of sounds cliche, but like I thought that's what mattered to me. Turns out it didn't. But for a very long time, I believed that graduating college, getting a certain kind of job, not necessarily a job that made a lot of money, but like a respectable kind of job, and then you have kids and you buy a house and you do this thing. That's kind of what I thought was important to me. Like I said, spoiler, not at all. But I was just going through my life and had never stopped to think about, one, my happiness and what it would actually take to make me happy, and that might be something different than what the media told me or my friends said or my family said.
Mm-hmm. I can agree with that. I was always, I would say, good at school. Like that type of learning and process came naturally to me, and I got a lot of external validation for it. And so I think younger me was very much tied to that idea of achievement and that being the thing and that being important. And while I do think there were times in my life when that was important to me because there were things I wanted, and I think achievement, particularly academic achievement, was a way of getting those things. The reality is, like, there became a point where it was harder to maintain the facade that it was important to me than to actually like be important. So I had to have some of those tough conversations with myself about like, what is the thing here that I want, that I am pushing for, because it shouldn't be this hard. And I don't mean like hard work is not a thing, but like internally, the idea of getting myself mustered up and on this train to check these boxes was more than it should be if it were something I genuinely wanted and desired.
What you said just reminded me of something like, there's a reason I am a 3-time master's degree dropout. Because I would get these feelings like I should be doing more. I should be trying to like do this thing. And I knew when I would be trying to do it, it didn't sit right with me, but I couldn't identify that that's why it didn't sit right with me, because it wasn't something I really wanted. It didn't support my values. I don't know, but it didn't sit right with me, and I could not put together like, oh, that's why. So I would get in my head, you, somebody of your status, your place, you should have a master's degree. And I tried that 3 times and spent so much money. I don't want no master's degree. I don't want to be in somebody's classroom. I like to learn, but
not like that.
Not like that.
Yeah, no, what you're talking about is it was a very direct values conflict. And we don't often recognize it as such, but that is what it is. Yeah. Is because there is something in you that is not fully aligned with what this thing is, or maybe how you're going about it, right? You said you enjoy learning, but the classroom, right, sort of that typical academia setting was not necessarily the way for you to go about it.
So if you're watching this and we've gotten you to thinking about what are your values, what are the things that you hold important, and you're trying to figure out like, am I in misalignment? Am I out here living my life in a way that doesn't really line up with the things that are important to me? How can you tell that?
For me, I think it was about taking the time to really consider, when do I feel like in flow? Like things are easy, things are joyful, they feel good, right? Like in what I'm doing. Okay, what am I doing? Who am I doing it with? And you can go online and look up a list of values, but like, what are the things that are being exemplified by those actions or during that time. Like it is very easy for me now to be like, oh, my top core values are freedom and connection. And I can very easily draw lines to the things I do day to day, how those align with one or both of those values. And if you cannot easily do that, then there's probably a sign that something needs to shift.
For me personally, it was more of, goes back to what you said before about like trying to keep up the facade. And I got to a point where cracks were starting to form. And it hit me in a moment that like, you keep going down this road.
Mm-hmm.
You cannot continue to do this. And I thought about, if I died tomorrow and the life that I have lived up until this point, would I be satisfied with it?
Mm-hmm.
Would I be, regretful or feeling like, oh, I wish I could have done this, that, and I didn't like the answer. I would not have been satisfied.
Yeah.
And so I decided in that moment, I was like, from here on out, I have got to live my life in such a way that there is none of this angst, this wrongness. It's got to be doing the things that are important to me, centering those values and those beliefs.
Mm-hmm. And I think it's important to be very forthcoming and very direct with that, because I think so often, like if I asked you what your values were, you might be able to give me something, but then when I ask you how that ties to your everyday, like the things that you're doing, those things probably are not fully in alignment. And I think it is really important to consider that, particularly, I think if you're a parent, if you are someone who has people or want people to look up to you, if what you're doing and what you say are not together, you're teaching things that maybe you don't intend to. I think there is this idea of like, do as I say and not as I do. and the people around us very much pick up on our actions. And so I think it is very important to have these self-conversations, but also, talk about it and connect and figure out where are the things I say that, here is what is really important to me. I say that travel is really important to me, and yet I struggle to get away for 2 weeks out of the year. Like I struggle to actually make that time for myself. Okay, what is that then communicating to you or to others that maybe you want to be doing things differently?
We can lie to ourselves, but our actions do not lie. Once you really take that to heart, it kind of opens the door so that you can kind of see that disconnect. And I think there are probably some folks out there like me who can't identify the disconnect. Like the biggest thing to me, if the way you're living your life and the things that you truly value are not in alignment, low key, the vibes are going to be off. Like in how you live your life, things they're not going to be, I want to say they're not going to turn out the way you want, but
right.
You're not going to feel great about the way they turn out because it's.
Yeah, I think it's when you're, I guess I would say that if you are living and acting in alignment with your values, the journey feels good. Like it's less about the outcome. It is that I am enjoying, I am satisfied with the now or with what is happening. Even if, I get it, there are things that we want that maybe we can't have just yet, right? Like there's things that we're maybe working towards, but like if you are in alignment with your values and working towards, like the journey should not take so much out of you.
So we've done a lot of talking here about how important it is that you live your life in such a way that it is aligned with what you value. We've also told you that as you start to think about your values or the things that you find important, you may discover that it's not things that you really believe are important. It's the stuff your community has told you is important, the thing that your parents or your family has said, this is who we are.
Mm-hmm.
And so trying to dig through all of that and get down to, okay, well, who am I? what matters to me. That can be a little tricky,
Yes.
but we want you to go to this site here. It is also linked in the description. And what you can do here is go through a process that's very similar to the one that we use as part of the coaching we do in our retreat, where you will kind of categorize and I guess narrow down,
Yes.
keep drilling down to like what is really important to you. And you should get a few values. So again, we want you to visit the site. It is linked in the description of this video, and go through the activity and
maybe learn more about what your values are. I make you narrow it down to 2, but we got to start somewhere.
3, 4, that's a good number.
And if you're feeling so inclined, we'd love for you to share what values either you know that you have, or maybe after taking this assessment, what comes up for you. We would love to know.
So feel free to leave those
in
the comments. If you found this helpful, you found this useful, you know somebody in your life who this would be helpful to, feel free to share this video with them. Hit the like button if you enjoyed it. And if you have not subscribed to our channel, you want to do that. And get on our mailing list.
Yes.
So
reclaimtheretreat.com. Get on our mailing list. Find out about the other activities and retreats that we will be holding in 2025.